What happens when the weakest member of the pack becomes its greatest prophecy? For Alara Winters, life had always been written in shadows. She was an Omega, the lowest rank in the Silvercrest pack, barely tolerated, perpetually invisible. While Alphas commanded with thunderous authority and Betas moved through the world with confident purpose, she existed in the margins, her head bowed, her voice silenced. For 23 years, she had endured the whispers, the sneers, the casual cruelty of wolves who saw her as little more than a burden. Her parents, though they bore titles of minor standing, had always kept their distance, their eyes holding something she'd never understood. Not quite shame, but something deeper. Something like fear. But when Alpha Theron Blackwood rejected her as his fated mate in front of the entire pack during the Harvest Moon ceremony, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Because Alara Winters wasn't just an Omega. She was something ancient, something prophesied, something that had been sleeping, bound by magic and fear, waiting for the exact moment when betrayal would set it free. The Harvest Moon hung bloated and orange above the Silvercrest gathering grounds, casting long shadows across hundreds of assembled wolves. Alara stood at the edge of the crowd, her slender frame trembling despite the mild autumn air. The scent of wood smoke and roasting meat filled the clearing, mixed with the complex bouquet of pack scents, dominance, excitement, anticipation. Her own scent, a soft whisper of lavender and morning dew, went unnoticed by most. Omegas were meant to blend into the background, after all. The ceremony was ancient tradition. Under the Harvest Moon, fated mates could reveal themselves, bonds acknowledged and celebrated before the moon goddess herself. Alara had never expected to participate. Omegas rarely had fated mates, or rather, they had them. But those bonds were often rejected in favor of more politically advantageous pairings. She'd felt the pull 3 days ago, a tug in her chest, gentle but insistent, drawing her attention across the pack grounds to him. Theron Blackwood, the Alpha's eldest son, heir to the Silvercrest throne. He was everything an Alpha should be, tall, powerfully built, with dark hair and eyes like molten amber. His scent was intoxicating, forest after rain, dying embers, ozone before a storm, cold steel. It spoke of power barely restrained, of dominance and danger. When their eyes had met across the training yard, time had stopped. The bond had snapped into place with such force that Alara had gasped, her hand flying to her chest. She'd seen recognition flash in Theron's eyes, followed immediately by something else. Horror. Now, as Alpha Marcus Blackwood called the ceremony to order, Alara felt that bond humming beneath her skin like a live wire. It hurt and sang at the same time. Her wolf, usually so quiet she sometimes forgot it existed, stirred restlessly within her. The moon goddess has blessed our pack with prosperity. Alpha Marcus's voice boomed across the clearing. He stood on the raised platform, his silver-touched hair gleaming in the moonlight. Tonight, we honor her with the revelation of fated bonds. Step forward. Those who have been called. 3 couples moved toward the platform, their joy palpable. Alara remained frozen at the crowd's edge, her heart hammering. Theron stood beside his father, resplendent in ceremonial leathers, his face carved from stone. Then his eyes found hers. The bond pulled tight. The crowd parted as Alara felt her feet move without her permission, drawn forward by a force greater than her will. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. An Omega? Approaching the platform during the mate ceremony? Alara Winters. Theron's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. Cold. Formal. You feel it too. It wasn't a question. Alara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Up close, his scent was overwhelming, threatening to drown her. "The bond is acknowledged," Alpha Marcus said, though his tone held surprise and something that might have been displeasure. Pack law was clear. Fated bonds revealed under the harvest moon must be honored. It was the moon goddess's will, unless the Alpha chose to reject it. Time seemed to slow. Elara watched Theron's jaw clench, saw the muscle jump beneath his skin. His amber eyes swept over her, taking in her simple dress, her slight build, her lowered gaze. She knew what he saw. Weakness. Shame. A mate utterly unsuitable for an Alpha heir. "I, Theron Blackwood, future Alpha of the Silvercrest Pack, reject you, Elara Winters, as my fated mate." His voice rang out across the silent gathering. "I reject the bond the moon goddess has woven. I choose power over destiny. I choose my pack's future over personal desire." The words struck like physical blows. Elara felt the bond begin to tear, felt something vital being ripped from her chest. She gasped, her knees buckling. "I accept your rejection," she whispered, "because pack law demanded it." The moment the words left her lips, the bond snapped. Pain exploded through her body. It felt like her soul was being shredded, like every nerve ending had caught fire simultaneously. She collapsed, her scream echoing across the gathering grounds. Around her, wolves shifted uncomfortably, but no one moved to help. This was the price of rejection. This was what happened when you challenged the natural order. Through the haze of agony, Elara was dimly aware of Theron turning away, his shoulders rigid. She smelled something then, buried beneath his scent of forest and storm, the sharp tang of regret. But it was too late. The damage was done. "Remove her," Alpha Marcus commanded. 2 beta guards hauled Elara to her feet. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. Blood trickled from her nose, her ears. The bond severing was killing her, slowly and publicly. "Please," she managed, looking toward the crowd, searching for her parents. Her mother stood near the back, her face pale but expressionless. Her father had turned away entirely. "Please." No one met her eyes. "By pack law," Alpha Marcus continued, his voice carrying easily over Elara's labored breathing. "A rejected mate must be cast out. They are severed from the pack bond, no longer under our protection. Elara Winters, you have until dawn to leave Silvercrest territory. If you are found here after sunrise, you will be killed as a rogue." The guards dragged her toward the edge of the gathering. Elara's vision swam. Cast out, alone, into the wilderness during the harshest season of the year. It was a death sentence dressed up as mercy. As they reached the tree line, one of the guards, a younger beta named Cole, hesitated. "At least give her supplies," he said quietly. "A coat. Food." The other guard, older and harder, shook his head. "Alpha's orders. She goes with nothing but what she's wearing." They released her at the boundary marker, a stone carved with Silvercrest's symbol. Beyond it lay the wild lands, miles of dense forest, treacherous mountains, and packs that would kill a lone wolf without hesitation. The temperature had been dropping for days. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Elara stumbled forward, her body still screaming from the bond severing. She looked back once. Through the trees, she could see the ceremony continuing. The pack celebrating their joy, while she bled from wounds no one could see. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. That look she'd carried Elara's entire life. Not shame. Fear. What had they been afraid of? The first snowflakes began to fall as Elara disappeared into the darkness. She walked for hours, driven by nothing but the primal need to put distance between herself and the pack that had thrown her away. The temperature plummeted. Her thin dress offered no protection against the wind, that cut through the trees like knives. Snow fell harder, faster, until the world became a whiteout of swirling ice. Alara's wolf was silent. Whatever damage the rejection had done, it had reached deep. She couldn't shift, couldn't access even the most basic of her supernatural abilities. She was human frail, dying in the wilderness with no hope of rescue. When she finally collapsed, it was near an abandoned structure, barely more than 3 walls and a partial roof, the remains of some long-forgotten outpost. She crawled inside, her fingers blue with cold, her entire body shaking violently. This is it, she thought with strange clarity. This is how I die. She'd always imagined death would be dramatic somehow, painful, or terrifying, or at least memorable. But this was just cold, just the gradual shutting down of systems, one by one. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat grew erratic. At least it would be over soon. Alara's eyes drifted closed. The storm howled around her pathetic shelter, wind whistling through the gaps in the walls. She thought of nothing. She felt nothing. Perhaps that was the moon goddess's final mercy, to let her slip away in the numb embrace of winter. She didn't know how long she'd been unconscious when awareness crept back. Warmth. That was the first thing she registered. Warmth where there should only be cold. Her eyes fluttered open and froze. Surrounding her, pressed close in a protective circle, were wolves. Massive wolves, each easily twice the size of a normal pack member. Their fur ranged from silver to black to russet, and they watched her with eyes that gleamed with uncanny intelligence. Alara's breath caught. She tried to count them. 1, 2, 3. Her gaze swept the circle. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 enormous wolves, arrayed around her like sentinels, their body heat creating a barrier against the killing cold. They'd saved her life. One of the wolves, the largest, with fur the color of aged oak and eyes like winter snow, separated from the pack. It moved with liquid grace, power evident in every step. As it approached, Alara felt something stir deep in her chest. Not fear. Something else entirely. Recognition. The great wolf lowered its head, and the air around it began to shimmer. Bones flowed rather than snapped, fur receding, mass redistributing in a transformation that was poetry rather than violence. Within seconds, a man knelt before her. He was older than Faran, perhaps in his mid-30s, with hair the color of dark honey streaked with silver. Scars traced his jaw and disappeared beneath his collar, the marks of battles won and survived. His eyes, still that impossible shade of winter snow, studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. His scent washed over her, aged oak, winter snow, pine, and the ozone smell of an approaching storm. It was nothing like Theron's sharp steel edge. This was ancient, patient, powerful beyond measure. "You're awake," he said, his voice a deep rumble that resonated in her bones. "Good. We were beginning to worry." "Who?" Alara's voice cracked. "Who are you?" A slight smile touched his scarred face. "My name is Kieran Ashenheart. These are my brothers and sisters." He gestured to the circle of massive wolves who watched with unwavering attention. "We are the Shadow Guard." The name stirred something in Alara's memory. Old stories, legends told to children. "The Shadow Guard is a myth," she whispered. "No." Kieran's smile widened slightly. "We are very real, and we have been waiting for you, Alara Winters." "Me?" She tried to sit up, but her body protested. "Why would you be waiting for me? I'm nobody. I'm just an Omega who was betrayed by her pack, rejected by her mate, cast out to die." Kieran's expression hardened. "We know what happened. We felt it the moment the bond snapped, the moment the binding on your power began to crack. Binding? Ilara's head spun. What binding? Kieran exchanged glances with the wolves around him. A silver female made a low sound in her throat, not quite a growl, more like a question. Kieran nodded in response. There is much you need to understand, he said, turning back to Ilara. Much that has been hidden from you your entire life. But first, you need to rest. Heal. When you're strong enough, we will tell you everything. No. The word came out stronger than Ilara expected. She pushed herself up despite the pain. Tell me now, please. I need to understand why this is happening to me. Kieran studied her for a long moment. Then he sat back on his heels, his winter snow eyes never leaving her face. Very well, he said quietly. But what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about yourself. The storm raged outside, but inside the circle of wolves, there was only warmth and the weight of impending revelation. 300 years ago, Kieran began, his voice taking on the cadence of a storyteller. The moon goddess herself walked among the packs. In those days, wolves were different, stronger, more connected to the magic that flows through all living things. The hierarchy we know now, Alpha, Beta, Omega, didn't exist. There was only the matriarch. He paused, gauging her reaction. Ilara's heart hammered. But she remained silent. The matriarch was chosen by the moon goddess herself. She was the bridge between wolves and the divine, the keeper of balance, the mother of all packs. Her power was absolute, not through force, but through love, through healing, through the ability to see into the hearts of her people and guide them toward their highest purpose. One of the wolves, a russet male, shifted closer, his massive head resting near Ilara's leg. She felt a strange comfort in his presence. But power corrupts, Kieran continued, his expression darkening. And fear corrupts even faster. When the matriarch died without choosing a successor, the packs panicked. They fractured. The strongest wolves declared themselves alphas, seized control through dominance rather than divine right. They created the hierarchy, Alpha, Beta, Omega, as a way to order chaos. But in doing so, they buried the old ways. They suppressed the very magic that made us whole. The prophecy was born from that fracture, a new voice said. Another wolf had shifted, a female with midnight black fur and eyes like molten gold. She was tall and lean, with the bearing of a warrior. I am Lyra Nightshade, she said to Ilara, and I have carried the words of the prophecy since I was old enough to understand them. She closed her eyes, and when she spoke again, her voice rang with ancient power. When the moon bleeds silver and the weakest breaks, when false bonds shatter and the sleeping wakes, the matriarch will rise from ash and bone. She will come crowned in power, not yet known. Born to the lowest, blessed by the highest, she will stand when all others have fallen, and in her howl, the old ways will rise again. Silence fell. The words hung in the air like visible things, heavy with meaning. That's just a story, Ilara whispered, but even as she said it, she felt the lie. Deep in her chest, something was stirring, something that had been sleeping her entire life. Your parents knew, Kieran said softly. When you were born, you manifested power immediately. At 3 days old, you healed a dying pack member with a touch. At 1 week, you commanded grown wolves with nothing but a look. They were terrified, not of you, but of what the alphas would do if they discovered what you were. Ilara's hands began to shake. No, they wouldn't. They couldn't. They hired a witch, Lyra said, her voice gentle despite the brutal truth. A powerful one. She bound your power, buried your wolf so deep you could barely feel her. They convinced the pack you were an Omega, weak and worthless. They made you invisible to keep you safe. But bindings don't last forever, Kieran added. They can be broken by powerful magic, or by the severing of a fated bond. The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity. The rejection, the agony that had felt like dying. It wasn't just the bond breaking, it was the binding shattering. "My wolf," Elara gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. "I can feel her. She's awake." And she was. After years of near silence, Elara's wolf surged to the surface of her consciousness. But this wasn't the weak, timid creature she'd always assumed lived within her. This was something vast, something powerful, something that had been caged for far too long. "Sister." The voice was her own, but different, ancient and young at once. "Sister, finally. I've been waiting. I've been sleeping. But now we rise." Energy exploded through Elara's body. She gasped, her back arching, as power flooded every cell. The wolves around her moved back, forming a wider circle, their eyes bright with awe. "It's happening," Kieran said, wonder in his voice. "The awakening." Elara's body began to shift, but not like any transformation she'd ever witnessed. There was no pain, no brutal snap of bones. Instead, her skeleton flowed like water, reshaping itself with fluid grace. Fur erupted across her skin, not the dull brown of an Omega, but silver that seemed to glow with inner light. Her size increased dramatically, muscles forming where there had been none. Power building in waves that made the very air crackle. The transformation took minutes that felt like hours. When it was complete, Elara stood on 4 legs, towering over even Kieran's impressive wolf form. She was massive, larger than any alpha she'd ever seen, her coat shimmering silver in the darkness, her eyes glowing with an ethereal violet light that had never existed in wolf-kind before. "Look at us," her wolf whispered. "Look at what we truly are." Elara turned her head, glimpsing her reflection in a patch of ice. She didn't recognize herself. She was magnificent, powerful, everything she'd been told she could never be. Energy built in her chest, rising like a tide. She threw her head back and howled. The sound shook the very foundations of the earth. It carried across the mountains, through the valleys. A primal call that spoke of old power returned, of prophecy fulfilled, of a queen awakening. The snowstorm paused, as if the elements themselves were listening. Trees bent away from the sheer force of it, and every wolf within 100 miles felt it in their bones. In Silvercrest territory, Theron Blackwood jerked awake, his hand flying to his chest as the rejection wound suddenly blazed with heat. Around him, the entire pack stirred restlessly, drawn by a call they didn't understand, but could not ignore. Back in the shelter, Elara's howl faded into silence. The Shadow Guard shifted as one, dropping to their bellies in a posture of absolute submission and reverence. Kieran, still in human form, knelt in the snow. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "She is the matriarch. The prophecy is fulfilled. The old ways have returned." Elara shifted back to human form, the transformation as easy as breathing. She stood naked in the snow, but the cold didn't touch her anymore. Power hummed beneath her skin, endless and intoxicating. But as the adrenaline faded, reality crashed back. She looked down at her hands, hands that had just commanded power she didn't understand, hands that belonged to someone she didn't know. "I don't know how to be this," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Kieran rose, moving to a pack one of the other wolves had been guarding. He pulled out a long cloak and draped it around her shoulders. "You learn," he said simply. "We teach you. That's why we're here. But why? Ilara pulled the cloak tight. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. We've been bound to this purpose for 300 years, Lyra said, having shifted to human form as well. She was stunning, with sharp features and that same uncanny grace. The first Shadow Guard swore an oath to the last matriarch as she lay dying. We would wait. We would watch. And when her successor arose, we would serve and protect until our final breath. That oath has been passed down through generations. We are the 10th Guard, and we have been searching for you our entire lives. One by one, the other wolves shifted. They were all remarkable. Warriors, every one of them, bearing scars and radiating power. But in their eyes was something that made Ilara's throat tight. Hope. I am Finn Stormcaller, said a massive man with scars that marked him as a survivor of countless battles. I am yours to command. Mira Frostborn, added a silver-haired woman with eyes like chips of ice. We pledge our lives to your service. They continued, each introducing themselves. Rook Shadowmane, Thorn Ironclaw, Sage Moonwhisper, Dax Flameheart, Ember Nightwalker, Zara Windrunner, and Ash Wolfsbane. 10 warriors, ancient and powerful, kneeling before someone who had been called worthless just hours ago. Rise, Ilara said, the command coming from somewhere deep within. Please, I can't have you kneel. Not yet. Not until I understand what this means. Kieran smiled, something warm and genuine. As you wish, matriarch. Ilara, she corrected quickly. Please, just call me Ilara. For now, he agreed. But soon, you will need to claim your title. The Pax will need to know what has returned to this world. The storm outside had settled into a gentle snowfall. Through the gaps in the wall, Ilara could see the first hints of dawn touching the sky. A new day, a new life, a new destiny she'd never asked for but could no longer escape. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of discovery and wonder. The Shadow Guard had had a sanctuary hidden deep in the mountains, a series of caves that had been expanded and fortified over centuries, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. It was here that Ilara began her true education. Shifting his instinct, Kieran explained on the third morning, as they stood in a wide cavern lit by shafts of sunlight from above. But control is learned. Try again. Ilara closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. The connection was so strong now it almost frightened her. She let the shift take her, feeling her body reshape with that same fluid grace. In seconds, she stood on 4 legs, her silver fur gleaming. Good, Kieran said. He was in wolf form too, his oak-colored coat impressive but still smaller than hers. Now, shift back. But slowly this time. Feel each stage of the transformation. It took effort to slow down what wanted to happen in a rush. Ilara felt her bones flowing, her fur receding, her mass redistributing. When she stood human again, she was panting but exhilarated. You're a natural, Lyra observed from the edge of the cavern. Most wolves take years to achieve that level of control. It's the matriarch's gift, Mira added. She was working on her own exercises nearby, her movements precise and deadly. She's not just stronger. She's more connected to her wolf than anyone else can be. But there was more to Ilara's power than shifting. On the 5th day, Finn injured himself during training, a deep gash across his arm that bled freely. Without thinking, Ilara pressed her hand to the wound. Heat flowed through her palm, and beneath her touch, the flesh knit itself back together, leaving only a faint pink line. Finn stared at his arm, then at her. How did you? I don't know, Ilara admitted. I just knew I could. Healing, Kirin said quietly. One of the matriarch's most sacred gifts. Over the following days, they discovered more. Alara could feel emotions, not just of the Shadow Guard, but of any wolf within a certain radius. She could push calm into their minds, soothe rage, amplify joy. When she concentrated, she could even command them, though she tried that power only once and immediately hated it. The feeling of overwhelming another's will was sickening. "You'll need it in battle," Thorn said bluntly. He was the most warrior-like of the guard, with scars that told stories of countless fights. "When enemies come, and they will, you'll need every advantage." "I'd rather talk than fight," Alara countered. "Then you'll be a better matriarch than the last," Kirin said, surprising her. She was wise and powerful, but she was also a product of her time. War was constant then. Perhaps you can bring something different, something better. The nights were for stories. The Shadow Guard shared tales of the old days, of the first matriarch and the golden age before the fracture. They spoke of magic that had been lost, of bonds between wolves that transcended pack lines, of a world where strength came not from dominance, but from unity. "That's what you're meant to restore," Sage said one night, as they sat around a fire. She was the quietest of the guard, with an almost ethereal quality to her movements. Not just power, but balance. Peace. "No pressure," Alara said wryly, earning chuckles from the group. But it wasn't all training and revelation. There were softer moments, too. Ember teaching Alara to cook over an open flame. Zara braiding her hair with surprising gentleness. Dax sharing terrible jokes that made everyone groan. Ash whittling small figures from wood and pressing them into her hands as gifts. They were becoming family. The family she'd never truly had. The family that chose her rather than merely tolerating her existence. And then there was Kirin. He was patient where others might have rushed. Gentle when he needed to be, firm when she required it. He never treated her as weak, but neither did he expect her to have all the answers. When she cried from frustration or fear, and she did more than once, he simply sat beside her, offering silent support until she was ready to try again. The scent of aged oak and winter snow became as familiar as her own. She found herself seeking him out, watching him train, listening to his voice as he explained ancient laws and customs. There was something about him that called to her wolf in a way that had nothing to do with fate or prophecy. This wasn't a fated bond. This was choice. On the 14th day, as dusk painted the sky in shades of purple and gold, Kirin found her sitting at the entrance to the caves, looking out over the valley below. "You're quiet tonight," he said, settling beside her. "I'm thinking about Silvercrest," Alara admitted. "About my parents. They bound my power to protect me, but they also let me suffer my entire life. I don't know if I can forgive that." "Forgiveness is not something that should be rushed," Kirin said. "They made a choice born of fear and love in equal measure. Whether that choice was right, that's for you to decide, when you're ready." "And Theron?" She looked at him. "He rejected me, cast me out. Part of me wants to make him pay for that." Kirin's expression was unreadable. Revenge is a poison that hurts the wielder more than the target. But justice? Justice is different. Justice is about balance, about making things right. When the time comes, you'll know the difference. How can you be sure? He smiled then, reaching out to tuck a strand of her silver-white hair behind her ear. The simple gesture made her breath catch. "Because I know you, Alara Winters. You have been weak and made yourself strong. You have been cast out and found family. You have been broken and made yourself whole. Someone who has walked that path doesn't choose petty revenge. They choose to be better than those who hurt them. You have a lot of faith in someone you've known for 2 weeks. I've been waiting for you my entire life, Kieran said softly. I've known who you were before we ever met. The moment hung between them, charged with possibility. Then Kieran stood, offering his hand. Come. The others are waiting. Lyra says she's going to teach you combat tomorrow, and she's been looking forward to it for days. Alara took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. As they walked back into the warmth of the caves, she realized something had shifted. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She wasn't just discovering who she was meant to be. She was becoming someone she actually liked. The enemy came on the 18th day. Alara was deep in the forest, practicing her tracking skills under Rook's watchful eye, when the warning howl split the air. It was Ash's voice, sharp with alarm. Move! Rook commanded, already shifting. They raced back toward the caves, covering miles in minutes. As they burst into the main cavern, the rest of the Shadow Guard was already assembled in full battle readiness. Kieran stood at the center, his expression grim. Scout from Silvercrest, he said without preamble. He found our trail 3 days ago. We tried to intercept him, but he was fast. He's reported back to his pack by now. Theron knows I'm alive, Alara said. It wasn't a question. And he's mobilizing a war party. We've been monitoring their movements. They're 25 strong, including Theron himself and his father, Marcus. Why? Alara's hands clenched into fists. Why come after me? I'm cast out. I'm dead to them. Lyra stepped forward, her expression dark. Because they felt your howl. Every Alpha within 100 miles felt it, and they're terrified of what it means. They're also bringing Sienna Redthorn, Mira added. I know who she is, Alara interrupted. Sienna was the daughter of a Beta family, beautiful and ruthless in equal measure. Her scent, cinnamon and iron and blood, had always made Alara's skin crawl. She wanted Theron. She's been positioning herself as his future mate for years. And she's leading the charge to eliminate you, Kieran said. According to our scouts, she's convinced the pack that you're a threat, that you've somehow tricked us into protecting you, that you need to be put down before you can endanger others. Rage, hot and bright, flared through Alara's chest. Her wolf snarled in response. Let them come, she heard herself say. I'm done running. Kieran studied her intently. This is your choice, matriarch. We can relocate, disappear deeper into the wilderness, avoid conflict entirely. No. Alara's voice was firm. I've spent my whole life being invisible, being nothing. They cast me out to die, and when I survived, they decided I don't deserve even that. I won't run. Not anymore. A slow smile spread across Kieran's scarred face. Then we make our stand. The Shadow Guard assembled quickly, each member moving with the precision of warriors who had trained together for years. They chose the ground carefully, a clearing at the base of the mountain, surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides. Defensible, controllable. We'll reveal ourselves one at a time, Kieran explained as they took their positions. Let them think they have the advantage. Let them see what they expect to see. And then we show them what they should fear, Lyra finished, her smile all teeth. The Silvercrest wolves arrived as the sun reached its zenith. They came as a coordinated unit, moving with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. Theron led from the front, his amber eyes scanning the clearing. Beside him, Sienna moved with lethal grace, her cinnamon and blood scent declaring her aggression to anyone who could smell it. Alpha Marcus brought up the rear, his authority evident in every movement. Alara stood alone in the center of the clearing, wearing simple leather armor that Mira had crafted for her. Her hair, shot through with silver now, was braided back from her face. She looked nothing like the broken, dying Omega they'd cast out. She looked like a warrior, like a queen. "Elara Winters," Marcus's voice boomed across the distance. "You are in violation of pack law. You were cast out. You should be dead." "But I'm not," Elara called back, her voice steady. The moon goddess had other plans. Sienna laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "The moon goddess? You presume to speak for her? You're an Omega." "You're nothing." "I was an Omega," Elara corrected. "I was also bound, suppressed, and forced to be less than I am. But those chains are broken now, and I stand before you as what I was always meant to be. A rogue and a threat," Theron said. His scent washed over the clearing, forest, embers, ozone, steel. But now there was something else beneath it. Uncertainty. "Surrender, and we'll make your death quick." "I'm not the one who should be afraid today," Elara said softly. "But I'll give you one chance. Turn around. Walk away. Forget you ever saw me here, and I'll forget that you tried to kill someone whose only crime was being born different." Sienna snarled, her eyes flashing. "You don't give orders to us. Then I suppose we do this the hard way." Sienna attacked first, her shift explosive and sudden. She was a large wolf. Russet and black, fast and vicious. She closed the distance in seconds, leaping for Elara's throat. Elara didn't shift. She simply raised one hand, and power exploded from her palm. The wave of force caught Sienna mid-leap, slamming her backward with enough strength to crack a tree trunk. She hit the ground hard, skidding across the earth, and didn't get up. Silence fell across the clearing. The Silvercrest wolves stared in shock. "I told you," Elara said quietly. "I'm not what I was." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Kill her, all of you. Now." The pack surged forward as one, 25 wolves against a single target. It should have been over in seconds. Instead, the Shadow Guard revealed themselves. From the trees, from the rocks, from positions all around the clearing, 10 massive forms emerged. They were like nothing the Silvercrest wolves had ever seen. Dire wolves from legend, each one twice the size of an alpha, radiating power that made the air itself crackle. Kieran stood at the front, his oak-colored coat magnificent, his winter snow eyes locked on Theron. Beside him, Lyra's black fur seemed to absorb light. Finn's scarred form promised violence. Mira's silver coat gleamed like metal. The Silvercrest wolves skidded to a halt, their momentum broken by pure terror. "She is not alone," Kieran's voice rang out, human words from a wolf's throat. Another impossibility. "She has never been alone. We are the Shadow Guard, sworn to the service of the Matriarch, and you have made a grave mistake." "Matriarch?" Marcus's voice cracked. "That's impossible. The Matriarch is legend, children's stories." "No," Elara said, and finally. She let her shift take her. The transformation was beautiful and terrible, her form expanding, silver fur erupting, power radiating outward in visible waves. When she stood fully revealed, she towered over even Kieran, her violet eyes blazing with otherworldly light. The prophecy had spoken of her, the weakest rising, the sleeping waking, the matriarch returning to reclaim what had been lost, and every wolf in that clearing felt the truth of it in their bones. Most of the Silvercrest wolves dropped immediately to their bellies, submission written in every line of their bodies. A few hesitated, torn between loyalty to their alpha and the primal recognition of power far greater than anything they'd known. Only Theron remained standing, though his body trembled with the effort. "This is a trick," he said, but his voice held no conviction. "Some kind of magic. Some kind of—" "The binding is broken," Kieran said, still in his massive wolf form. "The rejection you performed severed the spell her parents placed on her at birth. You freed the very thing you were afraid of. Well done, Alpha. Theron's legs finally buckled. He hit the ground hard, his amber eyes wide with dawning horror. I couldn't have known. No, Elara agreed, her voice carrying across the clearing with supernatural clarity. You couldn't have, but you also didn't care. You saw someone weak, and you decided they were worthless. You threw away the moon goddess's gift because it didn't fit your vision of power. She moved forward, each step deliberate. I should kill you for that. Pack law would support it. You cast me out to die, and I lived. That makes you my enemy. She stopped in front of him, so close that her breath stirred his fur. Around them, the Shadow Guard held absolutely still, waiting to see what their matriarch would choose. But I'm not going to kill you, Elara said quietly, because I'm not you. I'm not going to become the monster you tried to make me believe I was. She looked past him to Marcus, to the assembled wolves. I'm going to show you what real power looks like. Not dominance, not cruelty, but justice. She shifted back to human form, standing naked and unashamed before them all. Kieran appeared at her side, draping a cloak around her shoulders. Always prepared, always protecting. The pack laws are broken, Elara declared. The hierarchy that has governed you for 300 years was built on fear and the suppression of the divine. It ends today. You can't just, Marcus started. I can. Elara's eyes flashed violet. I am the matriarch. I am the bridge between wolves and the moon goddess. I am what you forgot when you decided strength was more important than wisdom. And I'm telling you now, things are going to change. She looked at Theron, really looked at him, and felt nothing. The bond that had once tied them was ashes. What she'd mistaken for destiny had been nothing more than the moon goddess's way of setting her free. You will return to Silvercrest, she said. You will tell every wolf what you witnessed here. You will tell them the matriarch has returned, and you will tell them that any wolf, Alpha, Beta, Omega, it doesn't matter. Any wolf who seeks sanctuary, who has been cast out or rejected or deemed worthless by this broken system, they have a place here, with me, with the Shadow Guard, in a pack that values what's inside rather than what rank you were born to. They'll call you a rebel, Marcus said, finding his voice. A rogue. They'll unite against you. Let them try. Elara smiled, and it was not a kind expression. I've died once already. I came back stronger. I'm not afraid of what comes next. She turned to Sienna, who had finally dragged herself to consciousness. As for you, Sienna Redthorn, you led this attack. You wanted me dead out of jealousy and spite. For that, you are banished from Silvercrest territory. You will be rogue, as I was made rogue. But unlike the sentence given to me, you will keep your life. Use it to become better than what you are. Sienna's eyes blazed with hatred, but she knew better than to speak. Go, Elara commanded, and her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. All of you, and remember what you saw here today. The Silvercrest wolves retreated, their heads low, their spirits broken. Theron was the last to leave, his eyes meeting Elara's one final time. She saw regret there, and grief, and the devastating understanding of exactly what he'd lost. Goodbye, Theron, she said quietly. I hope you find a mate worthy of you. Or better yet, I hope you learn that worth isn't measured in rank or power, but in how we treat those who have none. He turned and walked away, his shoulders bowed, looking suddenly small. When they were gone, Elara's legs finally gave out. Kieran caught her before she could fall, his arms strong and steady. You did well, he murmured against her hair. You showed them mercy and strength in equal measure. I showed them what they should have shown me, Ilara corrected. She was shaking, adrenaline and fear, and relief all mixing together. I was scared, Kieran. The whole time I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Lyra said, shifting to human form and approaching. It's acting despite it. You stood before your tormentors and chose the high road. That's true power. One by one, the Shadow Guard shifted back, forming a circle around their matriarch. They had fought together. They had revealed themselves to the world, and they had won without shedding blood. What happens now? Finn asked. Ilara looked up at the sky, at the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon. Now, she said, we build something better. We create the pack that should have existed all along. We become the change this world needs. And if they come back, Thorn's hand rested on his weapon, if they bring an army, then we'll be ready. Ilara straightened, drawing strength from the wolves around her. But we won't meet them with violence unless we have no choice. We'll meet them with truth, with the proof that there's another way to live. Kieran's hand found hers, his fingers lacing with hers in a gesture that felt both new and ancient. Together, he said simply. Together, Ilara agreed. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, the Shadow Guard and their matriarch stood united. The old prophecy had been fulfilled. The old ways had returned, and the future, for the first time in 300 years, was full of possibility. 3 months had passed since the confrontation with Silvercrest. 3 months in which everything changed. Wolves came to the mountain, just as Ilara had known they would. First in ones and twos, then in groups. Omegas who had been cast out. Betas who had never fit their pack's rigid structure. Even a few alphas who had grown tired of the constant dominance battles, the endless political maneuvering. They came seeking sanctuary, and Ilara gave it freely. But she also gave them more than that. She gave them purpose, community, a place where their worth wasn't determined by their rank at birth, but by their character and choices. The caves expanded. New chambers were carved from the mountain stone. Training grounds were established. Fields were planted. What had been a hideout became a home, and then something more. It became the new Silvermoor Pack, named for Ilara's silver fur and the moorlands that stretched beyond the mountain range. A pack built not on hierarchy, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. Kieran stood at her side through all of it, her partner in the truest sense. The bond between them had grown naturally, organically, until one night under a full moon, they had sealed it in the ancient way. Not a fated bond, but a chosen one, arguably more powerful because it was built on understanding rather than divine mandate. When Kieran had marked her beneath her ear, his teeth gentle, but firm, and she had marked him in return, Ilara had felt complete in a way she never had before. The glowing symbols appeared on both of them, ancient marks of a union blessed by the moon goddess, not through fate, but through choice. On this particular morning, Ilara stood at the entrance to the main cavern, watching the sun rise over her territory. Kieran appeared behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. Lyra reports 3 more arrivals last night, he murmured. A family. They were going to be separated by pack law because the daughter showed healing abilities. Healers are precious, Ilara said, turning in his arms. Why would any pack separate a family for that? Because she's an Omega, and they wanted her bound to an Alpha who could control her power. Kieran's expression darkened. The father refused, so they were exiled together. They're safe now, Ilara said firmly. Send them to Sage. She'll help them settle in. A howl rose from the training grounds, Thorn putting a new group of recruits through their paces. Despite his gruff exterior, He'd proven to be an excellent teacher, pushing wolves to discover strengths they never knew they had. Marcus sent another messenger yesterday, Kieran said carefully. He wants to meet, to discuss terms. Elara had been expecting this. Silvercrest had lost 30 wolves to her new pack in 3 months. Other packs were watching, waiting to see how this experiment turned out. Some were hostile, others were curious. Change was coming whether the old alphas wanted it or not. Tell him I'll meet with him, Elara decided, but on neutral ground, with the Shadow Guard present. I'm not naive enough to trust him completely. Wise, Kieran agreed. He hesitated, then added, There's something else. Scouts report unusual movement to the north. Rogue wolves gathering in numbers we haven't seen before. Elara frowned. How many? At least 50. Maybe more. They're being organized by someone, but we don't know who yet. The peace they'd built was fragile, Elara knew. There would always be those who saw change as a threat, who preferred the old ways simply because they were familiar. But she'd faced death and rejection and come through stronger. She could face this too. Double the patrols, she said, and make sure everyone knows to prioritize defense over aggression. We're building something here, Kieran. Something important. I won't let it be destroyed before it has a chance to flourish. He kissed her temple, his scent of oak and snow wrapping around her like a blanket. The blood moon rises in 2 weeks, he reminded her. The prophecy spoke of it. When the moon bleeds silver and the weakest breaks. The first part has come to pass, but prophecies often have layers. You think there's more coming? I think we've awakened something ancient, and ancient things rarely go quietly. He pulled back to look at her, his winter snow eyes serious. But whatever comes, we face it together. You, me, the Shadow Guard, and every wolf who has chosen to follow you. I love you, Elara said, the words still new enough to make her heart flutter. Kieran's smile was soft, genuine. I love you too, my matriarch, my mate, my queen. From the training grounds, Lyra's voice rang out, calling them to morning assembly. The pack was growing, thriving, becoming everything Elara had dreamed of, and more. She had been a rejected Omega, cast out to die in the wilderness, deemed worthless by those who should have valued her. Now she stood as the matriarch, the bridge between wolves and the divine, the keeper of balance, and the mother of a new pack built on the foundation of what should have been all along: equality, compassion, and the understanding that true strength came not from dominance, but from lifting others up. And so Elara Winter's journey from invisible Omega to legendary matriarch became the stuff of legend itself. She had been broken and remade. She had been rejected and found something better than fate. She had found choice. She had been cast into darkness and emerged as light itself. The lesson was simple but profound. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what we're born to be, but in what we choose to become when everything is stripped away. Sometimes the weakest must fall before they can rise as the strongest. Sometimes rejection is the moon goddess's way of freeing us to find our true destiny. What do you think would have happened if Elara had never been rejected? Would the prophecy have found another way to manifest, or was Theron's cruel choice exactly what fate required? And what challenges await her as the blood moon rises and ancient threats stir in the darkness? If you enjoyed watching Elara's transformation from Omega to Matriarch, please like this video, share it with fellow werewolf romance fans, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite moment. Was it her first transformation? The confrontation with Silvercrest? Or perhaps the bond she formed with Kieran and the Shadow Guard? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a chapter. Because Elara's story is far from over. The blood moon approaches, and with it, revelations that will shake the very foundations of the werewolf world. Thank you for listening to this tale of rejection and redemption, of prophecy and power, of a woman who refused to let others define her worth. We'll see you in the next chapter, where the true test of Ilara's reign begins. Until then, may you find the strength to rise from your own ashes, and may you always choose courage over comfort, love over fear, and growth over stagnation.